Sus! Oh, hi. Glad you're here. I'm glad to be with you. 1989 was a great year for film. It was also the year I turned 6 years old. Oh, so let's do the deal. Speed round. What do we got? The most influential movies released in 1989, coming out in March, was a film called Leviathan, starring Peter Weller, which I only recently discovered about 3 years ago. My brother and I came across it, and we just thought it was hilarious. We just had so much fun watching, old Peter Weller walking around like he was wearing diapers, and oh my gosh, one of the best endings to a movie ever when he, spoiler alert, punches a woman in the face. In context, it's appropriate, trust me. But it's a hilarious way to end a movie. Maybe that'll spike your curiosity and get you to see it. But Leviathan is about these people underwater, and there's a monster, and it's just a really awesome monster movie, horror B movie. It's great. I love it. I absolutely love Leviathan. It's my guilty pleasure now. So wonderful film. Then you've got let's see, in May of 1989. Depending on who you ask, what Jim Carrey's first movie was. People always say I have a lot in common with Jim Carrey. We're both Canadian, and apparently I look a little like him, and I act a lot like him. But I think there was Once Bitten. There was maybe something even before that. But one of his first movies is a wonderful, wonderful cult classic, beautiful gem called Earth Girls Are Easy. Also starring a young Jeff Goldblum, who was always that way. Jeff Goldblum was always Jeff Goldblum. And one of the Wayans, Damon Wayans? Anyway, they're three aliens who come to Earth and meet Gina Davis. Gina Davis was my first. That's neither here nor there. I was gonna say Awkward Dream, but it was when she was in that pirate movie, Cutthroat Island. But that's not what we're talking about. Earth Girls Are Easy is a fantastic film that's quirky and odd and very 80s. But Jim Carrey's hilarious in it. Jeff Goldblum is phenomenal in it. Damon Wayans, like the three of them just as aliens. Very fish out of water story. Good movie. Fun movie. Not heartwarming. What's the word I'm looking for? Heartwarming mixed with innocent. What's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't matter. This is dead air. Wholesome. See? Heartwarming and innocent. Wholesome. Very wholesome film. Love it. Although it's also very adult because it deals with a lot of sex. Anywho, they're very horny aliens. And then in May of 1989, there was a little film called Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It was the last Indiana Jones film, the final installment of the Indiana Jones trilogy. I just remember seeing that movie with my mom when we were on vacation in Colorado from California. We were living in California at the time, went on vacation to Colorado looking for a house pretty much because we were going to be moving there because my dad's job was moving from California to Colorado, which is how we ended up here. And while we were on vacation, we saw whatever movie was out. Although they did see Dick Tracy without me. I was very upset about that. But I did get to see Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Good times. It is? Yeah, still is my favorite Indiana Jones film. I like all of them. Yeah. I even very much so enjoy Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Change my mind. You won't. You won't. I'm pretty ticked that they're just disregarding Shia LaBeouf though in this new one. And if this new one is not about time travel, I'm out. How do you up the? You always up the ante in Indiana Jones. I'm gonna go off on a tangent. Deal with it. You get the first one is about literally the Ark of the Covenant, where you can talk to God, but then ghosts come out and melt people's faces. How are we gonna top that? Oh, let's have Temple of Doom, where it's about uh, uh, tribal stones that control the weather. And we're going to have a guy rip a man's heart out of someone's chest that's going to tick off all the moms and cause us to literally create the PG-13 rating. Yeah, that was Temple of Dune. Dune. Ooh, that'd be a good sequel. Temple of Dune. Temple of Doom was responsible for there being a PG-13 rating. So if you ever see a movie that was released before 1989 and wonder why is this PG? It's because there was no PG-13 yet, and it wasn't quite enough to be R. Anyway, and then the third one, you make about literally the chalice of Jesus Christ that grants you everlasting life. The holy freaking grail? So how are you going to up the ante in the fourth one? Well, you make it about extra-dimensional beings, aliens. Of course you're going to have aliens and flying saucers. It's the Roswell times. What's wrong with that? Great movie. I don't even mind the monkeys, but I'm a big Shia LaBeouf fan. And this new one, they're just going to disregard and they're going to call it the Dial of Destiny. So the only way to up the ante from extra-dimensional beings, aka aliens, is time travel. It'd be perfect. He can go back in time through his past 4 movies, make all those fans that hate the fourth one happy by, making little jokes and changing things. Go to all the famous points in the great first 3, and it would be phenomenal. Because then Indy could do all kinds of action because he'll be young and deep faked on some stuntman. If Dial of Destiny is not about either time travel or a bar of soap, I'm out. Moving on. Let's see. What came out? Oh, June. June, literally like about a week or so after my birthday, Batman came out. I'm only bringing this up. I'm not a big fan of the first 2. I mean, they're okay. I like them. Keaton's not my Batman. Keaton never was my Batman. You can put Keaton in this new Flash all you want, but all I care about is Michael Shannon, because he's the best. I like the Snyderverse stuff. But Keaton's not my Batman. My Batman's Kilmer. Val Kilmer's my Batman. Change my mind. You won't. But I'm going to bring up Batman because it was very influential on a particular thing that my brother would always do, and it's still something I do a lot. Yes, Jack Nicholson was fantastic as the Joker. Not my Joker. I'm a Cesar Romero kind of guy. It takes a real crazy Joker to put white face paint over his mustache. That man was insane. That was the craziest Joker. Cesar Romero, thank you very much. But we always did the little laugh thing at the end when he's lying on the ground and they zoom in from the That's really cool. So it made an impact on me, and I do that a lot to this day. August of 1989 was a little film called Little Monsters, starring Howie Mandel and both Fred Savage and Fred Savage's younger brother, who would one day be the star of Boy Meets World. Like, this movie is an 80s kids insanity. I tell you, you've got Wonder Years, Boy Meets World, and Bobby's World in a movie about a monster living under the bed, and then you get to go under the bed into the monster world. That movie's a trip. If you've never heard of Little Monsters, or you've never seen Little Monsters, starring Fred Savage and Howie Mandel as a monster, that movie is nuts. And there's always that one line, trick or treat, smell my feet, give me something good to eat. If you don't, I don't care. I'll pull down your underwear. That was the first time I heard that, was in this movie. But this movie's a trip. And like if you don't, and then I'm telling you, especially if you're thirsty. I'd say get a couple of friends and watch Little Monsters. That movie's nuts. But as a kid, it was just this great movie that was amazing. And as an adult, it's this great movie that's amazing and like mind-blowing that it got made. I love Howie Mandel, especially back in his heyday where he was a comedian and a monster.
And a little boy named Bobby. My name is Bobby.
Yeah, I also liked Bobby's World when I was a kid, but that's not on the list. Moving on. I mean, Boy Meets World and Wonder Years are brothers. They were in the same movie as brothers. Brothers, George. Anyway. What? That doesn't make any sense. I know what year that came out. Let's talk about The Wizard. Speaking of Fred Savage, I didn't even plan that segue. Fred Savage, star of Little Monsters, was in another movie that year. Wow, what a year for Fred Savage at a young age. Called The Wizard. The Wizard was a mind-blowing film, especially at the age of 6. Because let me tell you, this was in the heyday of Nintendo. This was when, oh my gosh, you could do things with video games like Super Mario Bros. 2. Oh my gosh. Unreal. We couldn't really afford a video game console in my home until the Sega Genesis was our first. But some friends had Nintendos, so we were familiar. But The Wizard is literally a movie about a troubled child and his older brother, Fred Savage. Again, with the brothers, I tell you. And I had 2 older brothers. And there's all these movies about brothers. No wonder these had big influences and impact on me. But The Wizard is about a video game savant. And they go on a road trip so that they can go to the video game tournament because they ran away from home from like their abusive father or something. Where's Radio Flyer? Is Radio Flyer on these lists at all? Might have been. But yeah, another Fred Savage film, and it was about video games. And they meet this one kid, and there's this segment about the Power Glove because, oh man, who could get their hands on a Power Glove? No pun intended. But there, you can maybe Google the clip. You just type in The Wizard Power Glove. And what'll come up is this clip. And he says, I love the Power Glove. It's so bad. Because back in the 80s, bad meant like radical. Anyway. But a very fun movie. But we always, the main impact it had on me was twofold. One, we always quoted this line, and it's what I always thought of the dinosaurs. And it's also the dinosaur that's featured in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Tim Burton's first film. And there's a moment and a sequence where Pee-wee's in that dinosaur. But it's a dinosaur in California, and the kids are trying to get to California. And then the one kid, like he ends up like the parents or somebody takes him, and then he takes off. It was the thing because the door was locked in the car, and he sees the dinosaur and he knows that it's California, and he tries to open the door. California! California! And they're like, what's your problem? And he's like, California! Oh, because he never talks. Maybe I should have mentioned that. This kid never talks. All he does is play video games. He's very shy because he's abused. Pretty heavy stuff they dealt with in the 80s without even, thinking about it. But anyway. So those are like the first time we hear him talk. California! California! So my brothers and I would always like tease that moment, and, California! And then, having lived in California and then moved to Colorado, when we went on vacation, because we drove, so when we drove to Colorado to look for a house knowing we were going to move there, and then we drove back, you can imagine the moment we realized we crossed the border back into our, at the time, home state. We went, California! California! I think I got my point across. California. But the other huge thing about that movie was in the grand finale when the kids are at the video game tournament, spoiler alert, they're playing these games they know really well, they're doing really well, yada yada yada, but then there's a big reveal where they're like, oh, now for the finale with the like the last 3 kids or something, y'all are gonna play a brand new game you've never played before. And they're like, what? What do you mean? And they're like, a brand new game that ain't even released. And in this movie, at the time, revealed, that wasn't even announced to the world yet, you know, the days before the internet and whatnot, Super Mario Bros. 3. Super Mario Bros. 3 is featured in this movie, yes. But what some people might not know if they just casually watch this movie, that was the reveal to the world that A, Super Mario Bros. 3 existed, and B, their first look at it was this movie. Which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Can't do things like that now. Now, you know every single freaking spoiler of a Marvel movie that's not coming out for 2 years. Thanks to the internet. Maybe we should stay off the internet. I miss the good old days. I miss the 80s and 90s. I'm so lucky and thankful I grew up in the 80s and 90s. Let me tell you. Because of movies like this. Glory. Glory. Our next movie is Glory. Glory is a great film, an amazing film about the Civil War. It's probably my introduction into how heavy... It's probably my first war movie, my introduction to how heavy war really was, my real... my first actual understanding of the Civil War, because we watched it in middle school. I believe it was 8th grade. 8th grade, they gathered the entire grade together and put us in what they called the Discovery Room. Oh, that's right, because my middle school was called Challenger, which was named after the shuttle. And then the big room, which was the only room in the school that could fit an entire grade, they named the Discovery Room after the shuttle Discovery. Anyhow. So we all watched Glory, starring Matthew Broderick, one of my favorites, star of Lady Hawk. See 1985 video for more on that. Oh man, still to this day, and he's done a bunch of amazing things, but if you ask me, still to this day, one of Denzel Washington's greatest performances, especially considering it was so early in his career. Glory is an amazing, fantastic film. Holds up to this day, especially as a war film that really shows you what some of these people went through. And it's about a white commander, general, whatever the heck it is, being charged with taking on an African-American troop or unit, whatever the heck. Great movie. Especially, I mean, it was the Civil freaking War. Yeah. It's such a good movie. But I vividly remember watching it in middle school in 8th grade. And I also have a core memory of my teacher, Mr. Worth. Mr. Worth was... Mr. Redinger. Was that his name? Wow, see, I'm losing it. This is why I need these stories on record. Mr. Redinger. Mr. Reader? Mr. Reader. Mr. Reader. Yeah, Mr. Reader. Mr. Worth was 4th grade. Mr. Reader was 8th grade. Good guy. He was a funny guy. He was like the class clown teacher, which to me was like left a very big impression on me. But during the movie, at one point, you hear the words, "Fire at will." And he could not help himself but holler out to the entire grade at that moment, pretty heavy moment in the freaking movie, "Which one's Will?" Yeah, who doesn't love a good dad joke? Okay, last but surely not least, the most influential, impactful film in my life that was released in 1989 is Ghostbusters 2. That's, if you look it up, it's not Ghostbusters 2, it's Ghostbusters Roman numeral 1, 2. Like 2 hash, well, not even a Roman numeral, it's Ghostbusters 1, 1. It's weird. But Ghostbusters 2. And, of course, for the millions of reasons, I love that movie. I think it holds up with the others. It's just as good as the first. I love all the Ghostbusters movies, but I love the second one just as much as the first one. Still filled with amazing characters and fantastic dialogue. We quote Vigo all the time. Why am I covered with goo? And I love you too. Like, Vigo's fantastic in that. Which was Peter MacNicol. Man, how am I pulling these names out of nowhere? Because Peter MacNicol also plays Mentark. No, wait. He's in Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law. Is it Mentark? No, Mentark is the other guy. Peter MacNicol played the little guy? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Watch Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law anyway. Watch every single episode. You can figure out which character Peter MacNicol plays. But he's great. He's Vigo. Great movie. Great time. But it had a huge impact on me because I still have a core memory of being on a playground jungle gym. One of those dome ones that they don't make anymore, where you could climb to the top of the dome from either the inside or the outside. And I remember being on top of it. It was after a friend's baseball game, and it was dusk. It was just getting dark. And I had found out, and this movie, by the way, was released June 16th, the day after my 6th birthday. But it was slightly after the fact, because back then movies would be in theater. Every single movie would be in theaters for like six to 9 months. So it was sometime thereafter. And I remember my friend telling me, oh, I saw Ghostbusters 2. And I was like, it blew my mind that someone I knew had seen it. Because again, before the internet and whatnot, before cell phones and whatnot, it would be very random for you to actually get to interact with someone who'd seen something that you didn't get a chance to see because your parents didn't take you for whatever reason. So I finally got to hear from someone who'd seen it what it was about and what happens in it. So it was probably one of my first memories ever of someone describing to me a movie that got me really excited to see it. The most impactful one will be coming up soon. Spoiler alert, it's Alien 3. But the first one was Ghostbusters 2, and someone telling me all about the movie. And me going, wow, I can't wait to see that. So yeah, that's 1986 for you. And I look forward to... Excuse me. That's 1989 for you. Not old yet. So that's 1989, and I look forward to the 90s. Okie dokie.